So getting ready to tie in the air jack system into the Honda. I figured I would put it in before I put the door bars in the way and the rear bracing. You know, that way the car's kind of held together with the cage while I'm cutting a bunch of stuff, and it just makes it easier to come getting in and out. But yeah, I got this pretty much drive shaft tubing that's going to go over the whole air jack cylinder, which is going to go like this, and it's going to sleeve it, and then it's got a nut like you know, like a coil over it tightens here. And I need to take this brace, which was the triangulation for the strut tie-in, and I'm going to do that. I'm gonna have to cut this short. That's, you know, that's supposed to go there, but I'm gonna have to cut it like here somewhere and tie it into the air jack. I'm gonna tie the air jack tubing into this bar so it, you know, it'll all tie back in together, and plus it'll add strength when picking up the car. And then for the rear air jack, I'm gonna put behind back there. That's gonna tie into the rear control arm framing, which is gonna be in here. I'm gonna notch this, come down in the middle of it, tie into it. This is super strong. And then up top, you know, there's gonna be some horizontal bracing. It goes from strut tower to strut tower. Okay, got the first air jack tube kind of tacked in for now. It's, you know, I try to make it as straight up and down as I can, because once it sends the tube out, you know, you want it to be straight as possible and pick the car up and not be on an angle and putting a bunch of stress on things. So the next thing I'm gonna do is weld a couple tubes from here to there. It's for some strength, and then I'm gonna take this angle bar right here, and I'm going to cut it to go into the air jack tube also. And the cage bar is at a different angle. That's just the kind of the way it came from AST. Couldn't really get it any straighter than that, but yeah. So first tube tacked in, moving on to making the supports. So got everything mocked up for the air jack tube on the driver's side. First one, that triangulation goes to the upper strut, lateral or horizontal brace going to the shock tower, and then weld her up and move on to the next side. All right, so that's the first one all welded up. You know, get around it as much as I physically can. This is more of a brace and a air jack tube, so parts that I can't get to, I'm not too worried about it. I guess it's not really structural, but yeah, just keeping it straight up and down as I welded was the hardest part. And that's pretty much what the first one looks like. I think it turned out pretty good. The welding underneath turned out really good. Yep. 2 more to do. So I got the 2 fronts in on the air jack system. What a bear that was. Trying to keep everything straight. Just trying to keep the level on it as I weld. Of course, when you weld this metal, it's kind of like drive shaft tubing. It kind of oblongs and it throws the levels off. And then also trying to weld behind here is like one of the worst things ever that I've ever done in my life. It's sarcasm. And it just sucks. And you know, I tried to use it in a mirror and it worked. So I was able to get around all this. I got the two fronts pretty much welded up. I need a new mirror for this one because I need to get behind here still and there. And then I'm gonna start working on the rear. One of the issues I have with the rear is that I want to go in the rear cross member area, and I want to channel here, maybe go like a third into this, and that'll support the tubing for the air jack, and it's also a good place in the middle. There's nothing back here that should be in the way, and I can tie it into the cage up top. Not worried, but the thing is that if I do it here, it's going to be a little bit higher than the other two air jacks, because I don't want to go any lower than these two frame horns, or not frame horns, but lower control arm pickup points. I don't want this like air jack sticking down too low right in the middle, because it seems like a bad idea. So I'm going to get into that, put the laser level on it, and see just how much I can cheat it up and make it work. All right, so getting ready to do the rear air jack housing, going in the middle of the control arm subframe slash body mounting area. I'm gonna drill about a quarter into this and weld a tube in there, and I'm gonna have a little bit sticking below the frame here, part of this channel for the control arms. And you know, once I put the round tube in there, it'll strengthen it back up after cutting it. So yeah. All right, so the plan is to, now that I got the hole drilled, you know, I got to trim this down, the cylinder. It's gonna go through here. I need to take the car up and plasma cut the rest of this, because I think it'd be easier that way. Then weld her in, paint the inside of the channel of the structure before I close it all up. Alright, so I got the hole cut in the rear subframe slash control arm structure for the air jack tube. I need to cut the air jack tube down, then get it all straight, make sure I'm at the same level or where I can adjust the air jack to meet the same level as the front jacks, and then weld this all up into this area. Okay, so that's pretty much it on the rear housing, pretty much centered on the rear of the car. It is, the bottom of the jack housing is level with these ears, these control arm ears with the car. I left this one to be adjustable up and down because I'm not sure, because the fronts are actually lower and I didn't want to make the rear too much lower than you know, because I didn't want this jack to be sticking way down and be an issue for when we're running the car, and it could possibly hit something like a curb or something like that. So yeah, so this one's gonna be adjustable. I think we can adjust it up and down to suit the control arm subframe brace for the ASR bar. Will cover most of it, and then we can adjust it up and down to where we want it to be. But right now, as it sits, it's about, I don't know, 1/2 inch higher than the front, maybe 3/4, but I can adjust that down and meet it. And you know, once I get the car on the ground and running, then we can kind of see where it wants to be, how high the rear is going to sit and all that stuff. I don't plan on having this car super lower than anything normal. You know, I'm not running a JTCC style car, so I don't think we're going to be too low. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And this is the top area of the jack housing. This is kind of vulnerable, but I'm going to weld from this strut tower to this strut tower on the rear, and that is going to be a bar across here, and then I'm going to tie it in to the front of this jack housing. So there's going to be a bar from here going to the strut, rear strut bar, and that'll strengthen things up pretty nicely. Yeah, so pretty simple, right in the middle. I think it turned out pretty good. Used the plasma cutter to cut into the rear subframe housing area, and that worked out great. Welds look pretty good. Going to clean everything up tomorrow and paint the inside of the subframe channel, paint everything, then start on the rear portion of the cage. And after that, after I tie the shock housing in, rear shock housing in, then I will move on to the seats, getting the column ordered, because I need to see how far my seat's going to sit back. I am going to put this driver's seat further back than it was from stock, so I need to figure out how long the steering column needs to be. I need to figure out how I'm going to attach the steering column to the EG rack that's going in this car. The subframe is from FCS Racing, and they require an EG rack supposedly. So I got one, and I got to figure out how I'm gonna convert a universal collapsible racing rack or a steering column to that coupling. So if anybody knows any tricks there with the Hondas, let me know. And there's my front shock housings. Those are all tied in. I painted those. Yeah, there's the other one. And then, yeah, there's the rear. So yeah, that's the air jack system housings done. Besides tying this one in the rear, I will have some more photos on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and upload this video since it's taking me about a month to make. And yeah, we're gonna keep posting videos best I can.